Welcome to the world's most infamous city. Here, in the cobbled streets and bustling marketplaces, fortunes are made and lost on the turn of a chariot wheel. Here, in the marble palaces and gilded temples, power is seized and held in the grip of iron and blood. This is Rome, but for 99% of those who lived here, this was their everyday reality. The clamor of commerce and the constant crush of humanity. We start our journey at the Forum Magnum, the very heart of Rome, where the city's pulse quickens with the dawn. Here, the day begins with merchants hawking their wares and laborers arguing over the price of grain. These men, your fellow citizens, are the bricklayers, porters, and laborers of Rome. Their day begins with the sun and ends when exhaustion pulls them to the nearest fountain to wash up and sleep under the stars. Their work is hard, their hours are long, and their pay is never enough. Yet they are the unseen hands that built and rebuilt Rome, the silent backs that bore the weight of its ambitions. As you walk through the labyrinthine streets, you hear the rhythmic clang of the blacksmith, hammer the murmur of gossip from matrons tending their shops, and the persistent drone of slaves, hauling marble blocks to the next towering temple or public building. Today, you will work alongside them, shouldering baskets of lime and stone to the next building project. Or perhaps you are a slave, toiling without pay, your back bent under an unbearable load. In the oppressive heat of summer, your skin slick with sweat, the only relief the distant promise of water and a meager wage at day's end. When the sun dips below the horizon, the city takes on a new life. Now, taverns line the street, offering cheap wine and warm bread to weary travelers and locals alike. You stop at a tavern, drawn by the laughter and chatter within. As you push open the heavy wooden door, you find yourself in a dimly lit room, filled with men of all ages and social classes. They are gathered here to escape the chill of the evening, to enjoy the company of others, and to drown their sorrows in wine. Among them are soldiers in worn and dusty armor, merchants with calculating eyes, and young men eager to make their mark on the city. Some sit at rough wooden tables, drinking and talking in loud, raucous voices. Others stand hunched over small tables, their heads bent in earnest discussion. You find a seat, order a drink, and listen to the conversations around you, catching snippets of gossip, rumors, and plans being made. A senator is being praised for his cunning, a general for his bravery in battle, and an actor for his portrayal of a famous Roman hero. Laughter echoes through the room as a group recounts the escapades of a drunken soldier. Suddenly, the tavern door bursts open, and a group of men stumble in, their voices slurred and their steps unsteady. They are led by a young man with a sharp face and a cruel smile. He catches sight of you and his eyes narrow. You feel a chill run down your spine, and you know instinctively that you would do well to avoid these men if you value your safety and your life. As quickly as they arrived, the men are gone, leaving you in the suddenly silent tavern. The air is thick with tension now, and you realize that not all of Rome's shadows are as harmless as they seem. It's getting late, and soon the cobbled streets will echo with the whispers of night. It's time to go home. You awake in a cold sweat, your heart pounding in your chest. The dream was so real, the faces so vivid, the emotions raw and true. You shake off the remnants of sleep, knowing that the events of the previous night were nothing more than a figment of your imagination. Yet as you rise from your bed, you can't help but feel the weight of their presence upon you, a reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the grandeur of Rome. Outside, the familiar sounds of the city slowly begin to stir. You pull your cloak tighter around you and step out into the bustling marketplace. The dream feels like a distant memory, yet its haunting echoes linger in your mind. And so our journey through time comes to an end. Did you feel the pulse of ancient Rome? Did you taste the dust of its streets and the sweat of its labors? Did you hear the laughter and sorrow in its taverns? If you did, then this journey has been worth it. For in the end, History is not just about emperors and conquests, but about the countless lives lived in the shadow of greatness. It's about the ordinary people who made Rome what it was, brick by brick, dream by dream. Thank you for joining us tonight. Sleep well, and may your own journey through time be filled with wonder and enlightenment. You imagine all this before dawn when you're lying on your straw mattress. You imagine it because you have no choice but to go back there. There's no escape from the life you were born into. Not for you, not for your family. This is Rome, the greatest city in the world, and you are a slave. You are a slave in ancient Rome. You serve a master in his home, hauling buckets of water from the public aqueduct. You make his bed with fresh linen every morning and prepare his meals. But when he comes home from the gladiator games, reeking of sweat and blood, you don't dare complain about having to wash his tunic for him. Your day starts early. Before the sun rises, you must be up, washing yourself with cold water drawn from the public bath. There are no private baths for you. You share everything with the other slaves in the household, the kitchen, the latrines, the courtyard where your master's wife likes to gossip with neighbors over their cups of wine. You have been planning to run away for months now. You have saved coins, bribed sailors, made false mustaches, all so that you can escape. When your master's ship docks in the harbor this week, you plan to run away. You will finally be free. You picture yourself on a boat to Asia Minor, away from Rome, away from slavery. But for now, you must wait. You wait in the shadows, watching the hours tick by. You watch the gladiators come home. You listen as they brag about the battles they fought and won. You hear them laughing loudly as they drink their wine and slap their slaves on the shoulders. You know that if your master knew you were listening, he would punish you severely. So you hide, crouching between two pillars, your ear pressed against the wall. When your master leaves, you slip out of the house and walk down a narrow street. The air hangs heavy with the stench of stale urine and garbage. If you were free, you would leave this place, maybe join a traveling merchant or become a shepherd in the country. You could even fight as a gladiator. You have seen enough battles to know how it goes. Men kill each other for the crowd's amusement. But you are not brave enough to be a gladiator. You reach a corner and turn into another narrow street. In the distance, you see the blue sea. You can almost taste the salt spray on your lips and feel the warm wind on your face. When you are free, you will go there. You will swim in the sea and let the waves wash away the stink of Rome. In the distance, you hear a trumpet blast and turn to see a column of soldiers marching toward you. You step aside to let them pass. One of them, a young recruit, stumbles. You help him up. He looks down at you with disdain and spits on the ground. You want to tell him about your plans, about how you want to be free. But what would the point? Soldiers like him enforce the law. And you know that if he found out you were a slave, he would have you arrested. You continue on your way, passing by shops with colorful wares displayed outside. You yearn for the day when you can buy something pretty for yourself, a silk dress or a golden necklace. Maybe then people will stop spitting on the ground and calling you names. You reach the harbor and slow down. The sea breeze feels good on your hot skin. In the distance, you see ships from many parts of the empire, Africa, Egypt, Greece. Even China has sent a delegation to Rome. Soon, Rome will be at war with China. You heard the emperor talking about it. But why does it matter? You ask yourself, what is the point of all this fighting? All you know is that you want to get away from it all, from the noise and the crowds and the stink of the city. When you are free, you will find a quiet place by the sea and build a small hut. There you will grow flowers and vegetables and live without fear. The soldier is gone. You look around to make sure no one is following you. Then you break into a run. You run until you reach the ship. It is docked just long enough for you to slip aboard unnoticed. The ship pulls away from the shore, and you collapse on the deck, too exhausted to move. You have made it. Now the only thing left to do is wait for freedom. I am the narrator of this channel, and if you want to hear more stories like this, stay tuned. Did you know that bricks were so expensive in ancient Rome that an entire generation of emperors tried to make them cheaper? Meet the Emperor Nero, the mad Emperor Caligula, the great Marcus Aurelius, and dozens more. They all faced one of the same problems. The cost of materials was too high. So they tinkered with new kinds of cement or fired up giant furnaces to try to produce better bricks. Why? Because the supply of bricks in the empire wasn't meeting demand. Building projects were taking longer, and cities were struggling to repair damage from earthquakes. And on top of that, people like us were moving into cities in greater numbers, which meant more houses to build, more public buildings to construct, more jobs for bricklayers. But in such a vast and varied empire, no two building projects were alike. And that meant that construction workers had to be incredibly versatile. Your first project might be building a house in the suburbs. The walls are low and the roof is flat. Your second might be repairing a basilica after an earthquake. Its dome is caved in and its marble columns are toppled. And your third could be helping to erect the emperor's new palace complex. Here, the vault is high and the marble needs to be precisely calibrated to fit. Each master builder would have his own team of specialized laborers. Some were trusted with simple tasks like mixing mortar or laying the first layer of bricks. Others had the skills to lay the final course of bricks around an arch or a window. Others still, the most highly skilled, would be given the most critical sections of the wall. The parts where even a tiny mistake could cause the whole structure to collapse. And those master bricklayers would need every skill they could get, because the nature of the beast is that it is dangerous. There is no safety net if you fall, no hard hat, no compensation. If your leg breaks, you will likely be dismissed. If your back fails, you simply stop coming. The worksite is ruled by foremen, some cruel, some indifferent. A spilled bucket of lime can burn your skin. Dust clings to your hair. And always your stomach grumbles. Lunch is a handful of beans, maybe a crust of bread, a sip of watered wine. Sometimes there's laughter among the workers. Jokes shared in Latin or Greek or Punic, for Rome speaks many tongues. A game of knucklebones on break. But these are small sparks in long gray hours. Evening comes slowly. Your arms tremble. Your tunic clings to you with sweat. You're not paid by the hour, but by the job. And the job is never finished. You walk back through the streets. Narrower now in the failing light, you pass open doorways, hearth smoke curling above rooftops. There are no bathhouses in Subura, no fountains here. Water must be carried, and it costs. At home, your neighbors argue behind thin walls. A baby cries. The floor above you leaks. Still, you lie down. Exhaustion is your only comfort. You sleep not to rest, but to escape the day. This was the life of countless men in ancient Rome. Not poets, not soldiers. Just the ones who held the city up, brick by brick. Yet this world, difficult and dirty, was only one layer of Rome's immense and tangled story. As we leave behind the streets of Subura, let us climb into the world of politics and ambition. A world not built with bricks, but with words, alliances, and daggers. We may be leaving the building grounds, but the skills you learned here will serve you well in the world to come, because whether you are a laborer or a senator, you must learn how to read the room to pick up on subtle signs of power and influence. And you need to know how to get others to do what you want them to do. In other words, you need to learn the art of persuasion. This is Crash Course Rome, a production of Complexly. Now, we're going to be honest with you right now. We've been thinking about this episode since last week, and we still don't know how we're going to make 3,000 years of Roman history comprehensible in 15 minutes. Spoiler alert, we don't. So let's do our best and enjoy the process. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, so it's 44 BC. Rome is all grown up. The Republic has taken on an empire, and Rome isn't a city anymore. It's a capital. And with a capital comes, well, a lot of things, like corruption, inequality, foreign entanglements, and a whole bunch of senators whose jobs are to get in everybody's way. To be fair, some of them do great things. But by the 1st century BCE, the Roman Senate had become what historians call an oligarchy, meaning that a few wealthy landowners have most of the power. So it's less a government by the people, and more a government by the 200 or so old rich dudes. The problem is, Rome is growing, changing. The Italian peninsula is a lot more Romang now, and that means there's a lot more people, and not just Romans, but conquered peoples too. So when it comes to making laws that apply to everyone you know from Hadrian to Carthage, the Senate is starting to look like your grandpa telling you how in his day they didn't have air conditioning, and they had to walk everywhere. Just as the Republic had once expanded power to the people, now a few powerful men were trying to take it back. These men believed that Rome should be ruled by the elite. They wanted to limit voting rights to Romang-born males over a certain property line. And that meant passing laws that would hurt the growing number of Italians who lived outside of Italy. And the Senate was also entirely male. So women, whether Romang or not, were out of luck. If you were a woman living in Rome, you could own property and run a business. And in 184 BCE, the togas got so fancy that they started putting pockets on them, because ladies apparently can't even. But politics was not open to women, not in any way that mattered anyway. In fact, Rome liked to keep women in their place, which was mainly the home. Their job, according to the poet Ovid, was to spin wool and flax, to make sure the slaves weren't plotting, and to bear children. And mind you, this is the same Ovid who wrote the wildly inappropriate Art of Love. And Rome was really down on divorce. You could do it, but it was hard, and you had to prove that you were getting divorced for a good reason. Like if your partner was a runaway slave, or we don't know, a complete monster. Rome is complicated, and these are just the basics. We're barely scratching the surface here, and we won't be able to cover everything we want to in just 15 minutes a week. So we hope you'll stick around and binge some episodes after this one. Anyway, there's a lot happening in the political sphere of late Republican Rome. There's war and civil unrest, and folks who want a piece of the action. And while we could dive into all of that, we'd rather save those stories for later. This is Crash Course, and we're just getting started. Caesar took the crown. The people cheered. His enemies fled. He returned to the Senate, and the cheers followed. But as he reached the top of the stairs, a group of senators blocked his way. They told him he must hear their request first. He refused. As they argued, the conspirators closed in. There was no warning. No cries of "Beware the Ides of March" as Caesar fell. It was sudden and swift. The first blow struck him in the shoulder. He cried out, turned to face his attacker, and was stabbed again and again and again. And then as suddenly as it started, it was over. Caesar slumped to the floor, surrounded by his killers, a single red toga covering both him and the steps leading to the Senate. They hadn't killed him, not really. The death that ended a republic and ushered in an empire was born that day. Next time, we'll start an empire. Thanks for watching this episode of Crash Course Rome, which was filmed at a studio and made with the help of all these nice people. If you want to help keep this course free for everyone forever, you can join our community on a crowdfunding platform. Rome is a city built over its past, and here in the Roman Forum, I'm literally standing above it. What you're looking at is not just dirt, it's centuries of discarded artifacts, 2,700 years worth. So imagine what's down there. It's a treasure trove. But if you want to get down there, you're going to have to dig through layers of history. That's why we're going below the Forum, to where the real treasures are waiting for us. You may have heard about Rome's sewer system, the aqueducts that brought fresh water into the city, and the cloaca that carried waste away. But what's really remarkable about these tunnels is how old they are. This is the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's biggest sewer, and it's 2,700 years old. To put that in perspective, nothing else like it existed anywhere in the world. It was designed and constructed around 600 BCE by an engineer named Marcus Valerius, credited with inventing concrete. He used it to line the sewer with a structure so sturdy it's still standing today. The Romans would use the Cloaca Maximo for everything: rainwater, sewage, even storm drains. It's no wonder it got pretty gross. But this wasn't the dirtiest place in Rome. That distinction belongs to the full public bathroom, also built by the same engineer. Want to know how I know? Because I'm standing in front of it right now. Welcome to the public bathroom of ancient Rome. In those days, toilets were a luxury reserved for the wealthy. But the engineer Marcus Valerius solved that problem by creating a public bathroom in the Forum, right in the heart of ancient Rome. And because there was no plumbing, people would use the toilets, then throw their business into the sewers. And this is where it would collect, mixed with rainwater and other storm runoff. It's pretty disgusting, but it's also pretty remarkable. If you look closely at these stones, you can see how worn they are, polished smooth by thousands of years of human waste. To reach the sewers, we have to go even deeper, down into the earth, below the public bathrooms, below the Forum, below the streets, into a subterranean world. Some of these tunnels are original Roman engineering. Others were added during the Middle Ages when the city expanded. It took 18 months to dig this tunnel by hand, and look at the result. This is the secret heart of Rome. The cloaca still carries wastewater away from the city, though it's cleaned up a bit since Roman times. Who knows what lurks down here? Ancient coins, maybe, or a stray gladiator sandal. How about a broken marble column? Looks like someone broke off a piece for a souvenir. Anything's possible in these tunnels. I wouldn't be surprised if we found Caesar's severed head down here. After all, it is Rome. And while you're exploring the city above, it's easy to miss the clues about its past. Hidden in plain sight, right underneath the Colosseum, there's evidence of Rome's first emperor, Augustus. He leveled the area in 31 BCE and established the Forum as the center of the city. Above me is his footprint on the Palatine Hill. Look closely and you can still make out the shape of his sandals, pressed into stone. Right across the way, there's another imprint, too. They were together that day, walking through the Forum when Augustus and his adopted son, Tiberius. But that was before the Julio-Claudians turned against their own blood to take the throne. Betrayed by family, murdered by friends. It was a dark moment in Roman history, one that changed the course of the empire forever. But you can miss it entirely if you don't know where to look. And that's why I love exploring Rome. There's always something new to discover, some forgotten fragment of history preserved in stone. It doesn't have to be a famous landmark. It could be anything, like the imprint of a sandal in the Palatine Hill. We'll never know who made these, but they left their mark on the past. And I think that's kind of neat. We don't need to know everything about Roman history. Sometimes it's enough just to be here, breathing the same air as our ancestors did, listening to the echoes of their voices in the stones. It's not about memorizing dates and names. It's about feeling the pulse of the city, the heartbeat of a civilization that never ceases to amaze. Rome is a city built over its past. And here in the Roman Forum, I'm literally standing above it. What you're looking at is not just dirt, it's centuries of discarded artifacts, 2,700 years worth. So imagine what's down there. It's a treasure trove. But if you want to get down there, you're going to have to dig through layers of history. That's why we're going below the Forum, to where the real treasures are waiting for us. You may have heard about Rome's sewer system, the aqueducts that brought fresh water into the city and the cloaca that carried waste away. But what's really remarkable about these tunnels is how old they are. This is the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's biggest sewer, and it's 2,700 years old. To put that in perspective, nothing else like it existed anywhere in the world. It was designed and constructed around 600 BCE by an engineer named Marcus Valerius, credited with inventing concrete. He used it to line the sewer with a structure so sturdy it's still standing today. The Romans would use the Cloaca Maximo for everything: rainwater, sewage, even storm drains. It's no wonder it got pretty gross. But this wasn't the dirtiest place in Rome. That distinction belongs to the full public bathroom, also built by the same engineer. Want to know how I know? Because I'm standing in front of it right now. Welcome to the public bathroom of ancient Rome. In those days, toilets were a luxury reserved for the wealthy. But the engineer Marcus Valerius solved that problem by creating a public bathroom in the Forum, right in the heart of ancient Rome. And because there was no plumbing, people would use the toilets, then throw their business into the sewers. And this is where it would collect, mixed with rainwater and other storm runoff. It's pretty disgusting, but it's also pretty remarkable. If you look closely at these stones, you can see how worn they are, polished smooth by thousands of years of human waste. To reach the sewers, we have to go even deeper, down into the earth, below the public bathrooms, below the Forum, below the streets, into a subterranean world. Some of these tunnels are original Roman engineering. Others were added during the Middle Ages when the city expanded. It took 18 months to dig this tunnel by hand. And look at the result. This is the secret heart of Rome. The cloaca still carries wastewater away from the city, though it's cleaned up a bit since Roman times. Who knows what lurks down here? Ancient coins, maybe, or a stray gladiator sandal. How about a broken marble column? Looks like someone broke off a piece for a souvenir. Anything's possible in these tunnels. I wouldn't be surprised if we found Caesar's severed head down here. After all, it is Rome. And while you're exploring the city above, it's easy to miss the clues about its past. Hidden in plain sight, right underneath the Colosseum, there's evidence of Rome's first emperor, Augustus. He leveled the area in 31 BCE and established the Forum as the center of the city. Above me is his footprint on the Palatine Hill. Look closely and you can still make out the shape of his sandals, pressed into stone. Right across the way, there's another imprint, too. They were together that day, walking through the Forum when Augustus and his adopted son, Tiberius. But that was before the Julio-Claudians turned against their own blood to take the throne. Betrayed by family, murdered by friends. It was a dark moment in Roman history, one that changed the course of the empire forever. But you can miss it entirely if you don't know where to look. And that's why I love exploring Rome. There's always something new to discover, some forgotten fragment of history preserved in stone. It doesn't have to be a famous landmark. It could be anything, like the imprint of a sandal in the Palatine Hill. We'll never know who made these, but they left their mark on the past. And I think that's kind of neat. We don't need to know everything about Roman history. Sometimes it's enough just to be here, breathing the same air as our ancestors did, listening to the echoes of their voices in the stones. It's not about memorizing dates and names. It's about feeling the pulse of the city, the heartbeat of a civilization that never ceases to amaze. The cloaca, the great Roman sewer, disappeared under the city in ancient times. Its arches and tunnels lying silent beneath busy streets. It is not easy to find. The entrance is hidden behind the altar of the fatherland, a huge monument that celebrates Rome's greatness over all of Italy. It was built in 1885 on top of the very spot where the sewer begins. What luck that such an important landmark should be built right on top of an important archaeological site. Not everyone has been so careless. Though there are many theories, no one knows for certain when the cloaca was built or who built it. It seems likely that it was constructed in stages, beginning around 600 BCE, then expanded again around 300 BCE, and finally by the Emperor Nero. So it was still under construction in the 1st century CE. Building something so big and difficult without any advanced tools or computers is a feat of engineering, even if you don't know who the mastermind was. And it was nearly invisible. Most Romans didn't think much about the cloaca. They heard it gurgle beneath their feet during storms. They knew it emptied into the Tiber. But its true scale was understood by few. Archaeologists have explored it carefully in modern times, sometimes wading waist-deep, guided by torchlight and damp echoes. In the murky gloom, they found ancient graffiti carved into the walls, bones of animals, pottery fragments washed down from above. There are even stories of priests making ceremonial offerings to the sewer, coins and small tokens cast into the waters, not unlike modern wishing wells. Some believed that the cloaca was more than just a pipe, that it was sacred, that it mirrored the city itself, dirty, alive, and indispensable. It may seem odd to think of a sewer as anything other than a public nuisance. But for the Romans, it was a lifeline. Without it, their city would quickly become a stinking, disease-ridden ruin. No one wants to live there. A good sewer system is indispensable to any thriving city. And by the time the Roman Empire was at its peak, most of Europe and the Mediterranean knew about the cloaca, but few had anything like it. Engineers have studied its design with fascination. The slope, the drainage, the durability. How did ancient builders know so much, with so little? Some people have tried to explain the aqueduct's perfection by appealing to magic or myth. The Romans, after all, were a superstitious people. They took great pride in their accomplishments. But there is no need to invoke the supernatural when the answer lies in hard work, trial, and error, and lots of math. We can be sure of that, because centuries later, when the Republic had turned into an empire and the emperors were spending money like emperors, there was a project to extend and improve the aqueducts. And we know that because the records survive. And there is only one conclusion. It was a massive undertaking, requiring hundreds of laborers and engineers working for years. But not all the aqueducts were alike. They were often poorly built and carelessly maintained. None were as grand as the aqueduct beneath the Capitol. Even today, parts of the cloaca maxima still function. Rainwater flows through it after storms. The arches still stand. The silent, steady work of those long-gone builders still echoes beneath modern Rome. So let us now rise from the underground, return to the daylight, but not to the crowded Subura, not to the worn sandals of a laborer patching the road, but to the quiet opulence of a Roman villa. Here mosaics shimmer in candlelight, and the struggles of others seem very far away. You are rich. You are Roman. You have everything you could possibly want. Slaves to serve you, fine clothes, beautiful art, and yet something is missing. You cannot name it. But you know that the life of luxury you live depends on the unseen world beneath the city, a silent, stinking underworld that carries away your waste and makes your life possible. You know that the very ground beneath your feet is a solution to a mystery of endurance, of survival, of design so good it disappears. For thousands of years, people have dreamed of flying, of soaring through the skies like birds or gods. But how? How can mere mortals leave the earth behind? How can anyone achieve flight? For centuries, the answer seemed hopelessly out of reach. Yet humans yearned to fly. They built strange machines with wings of cloth and wire. They launched themselves off towers, hoping to catch the wind. Then it happened, a sudden burst of progress, a man in a plane soaring above the clouds. The Wright brothers succeeded where so many others had failed. And it was all thanks to their bicycle shop. Thanks for watching. He talks easily to his companions, laughs loudly, throws back wine. With midday heat, the conversation turns to politics. Who is favored by the emperor? Which general will win the Parthian War? Who will succeed Cicero as consul? Words are carefully chosen, half-jokes, veiled insults, offhand comments that could help or hurt a man's career. By the time they leave the baths, the sun is high in the sky. A carriage waits to take the senator to the Palatine or the Esquiline, perhaps to inspect property, assess damage from the recent storm, collect rents. Slaves run ahead to announce his coming. They open gates, help him climb ruined stairs, hold up cushions for him to sit on while he inspects the damage done to his roof. Rents are collected in copper and silver, sometimes gold. The senator might weigh the coins, check them for quality. A document is produced, stamped with the seal of the landlord, the tenant signs, swearing to the amount. Throughout the morning, the senator has been surrounded by servants, slaves, and freedmen who do everything for him. Now he takes a moment to hand out small gifts, bits of coin, a silver plate, a tunic. He does this willingly. Such largesse makes him popular, ensures goodwill. Besides, it is expected. To be a Roman senator is to be a patron as well as a member of the elite. The rules of the game have been laid down long ago. You must spend a fortune on your toga, display it proudly. You must shower gold on supplicants, even beggars. You must build public works, erect statues, sponsor games. You must present yourself in the marketplace. You must watch gladiators fight in the Colosseum. You must dine in taverns with bohemians and artists. And all the time, you must make alliances, pay off enemies, stay one step ahead of ruin. There are traps everywhere. The senator knows this. A slight hesitation during a vote can signal weakness. An absent vote can cost a friend dearly. A harsh word to an influential freedman can bring ruin. Once the property affairs are settled, the senator returns home. Another day of dealing with people is over. Soon, the sound of flutes will echo through the gardens. A slave prepares his dinner. Wine and perfume mingle. Guests arrive. Dinner will be eaten in the evening twilight, long after sunset. There will be talk, laughter, music, perhaps a reading by a professional actor. The senator reclines on a couch, feeds grapes to a slave to enjoy the taste, asks a guest to sing. It is a life of luxury and danger, of endless obligations and opportunities. To be a Roman senator. The evening brings a return to the villa. The air cools. The lamps are lit. A cena of formal dinner is prepared. Guests arrive. They are all important people. Senators, lawyers, maybe even a philosopher. Together, they make up the elite of Rome. You may have noticed, though, that the servants seem awfully familiar with the food. That's because this meal is being eaten every day throughout the empire, all across the social classes. It is Roman food. The menu starts with starters. There may be wild boar or sausages or eggs. Today, though, we'll start with dormice. Do not worry, these are not mice. These are the fattened descendants of wild mice, fattened on a diet of milk and honey, then slowly roasted until they are plump and juicy and succulent. You can pick them out of the dish with tweezers if you want. Then comes bread with honey and vinegar, olives, nuts, cheese, maybe some dates or figs, and definitely wine. Good wine, too. This wine is imported from the Gauls. It's sweet and thick. In fact, it's so good that it's being honeyed to preserve it. Later, the main dishes will come. Things like fish baked in a garum sauce with herbs, or chicken stuffed with spices, or perhaps lamb roasted with wine and honey. There might also be vegetables, though. Greens and legumes are served, along with fruit from the countryside. Throughout it all, musicians will play softly in the background. A slave sits nearby, ready to recite poetry. There will be laughter, no doubt, and conversation. But the laughter is measured and polite. And the conversations, well, They always wind gently through philosophy and law and family matters. No shouting. Voices remain low. Expressions are carefully shaped. The senator listens more than he speaks. After 2 or 3 hours, the guests are ready to leave. They thank the host for the hospitality, and the senator watches them go. Then the house quiets. Servants clean and polish. The lamps burn low. The shutters are closed again, plunging the room into semi-darkness. The senator lies back on his couch, staring at the painted ceiling. He might think about the forum, the Senate, the emperor. Or he might think only about tomorrow, about surviving another day in this great city. Sleep comes easily to those who do not carry bricks. Sleep comes easily to those who do not carry bricks. The weight of empire does not allow for rest. It seems the only place where one can get a night as peace is in the lap of luxury, far from the clamor of the crowds, and the stench of the drains and the shadow of the gallows. Here, in this place of privilege and plenty, sleep is not disturbed by nightmares. In the morning, the senator will wake refreshed and ready for a new day. Life is good for him. Position is secure. Power is close at hand. But remember, friend, even here, position is never fixed. Even here, comfort is often borrowed. Look around you once more. See the frescoes on the walls. See how the light falls through the windows. Smell the flowers, touch the velvet. Note the perfume on the pillows, taste the sweetness on your lips. All of these are the trappings of power. All of these can be taken away as quickly as they were given. Remember, nothing is certain except change. Nothing is permanent except death. The frescoes could just as easily be daubed with graffiti. The windows could be boarded over with cheap wood. The flowers could wither. The perfume could turn rancid. The sweetness could curdle. And what would you do then? What would you become when the comforts of the villa are stripped away? Would you still be a Ramang then? When you awoke this morning, you were a speck among millions. You made a difference to no one. Yet you survived the night, and that was something. As you stand here among the ruins of an empire, remember that even in ruin, there is a sort of freedom. For when there is nothing left to lose, there is nothing left to protect. Now, as we leave ancient Rome behind, let us return to ourselves, to now, to a gentler time, a quieter world. Your journey through the layers of Roman life has reached its end. You've walked beneath arches worn by time. You've heard the footsteps of emperors, builders, and schemers. And now you're safe again, here, where the air is still, the room is warm, and the past has faded like a dream before waking. Sleep well, traveler of time. Rome will still be there tomorrow.